I'm Tommy, and I'm your friend to the end. Hi-ho! Now, don't take that too seriously, but I'm sure you'd at least rather play with me than play with that good guy, Chucky. Because as crazy as it is, he's starting to approach 4 decades of life on this planet, and he's stuck his bloody plastic fingers in just about everything, from film, to television, to video games, to even this soda. Yeah, not one of your best efforts, Chuck. Now, we've done lots of Child's Play videos here, and Chucky has been a long-time favourite of us at the Pop Cult Pod since our very first year. But I don't think I've ever said what my favourite films are, or indeed, least favourite films. Until now, that is. We're going to forget about the series, forget about the reboot, and we're going to rank the OG Child's Play films. And with that in mind, I have just one question. Wanna play? Coming in last is Child's Play 3. Child's Play 3 was rushed out just 9 months after Part 2, and it certainly does feel like it. There aren't a lot of new ideas or interesting twists to be had, and the military academy setting doesn't really feel suited to the series, and certainly doesn't add to the horror elements of the story. That story being that Chucky is trying to kill Andy, and it feels like by the third time around, that idea is getting a little bit stale. None of the new characters bring much to the table, they're mostly just stereotypes, and the story, as mentioned, doesn't really do a lot to get you invested, and certainly doesn't feel any bit fresh. While I will say the film redeemed itself a little bit towards the ending with a big over-the-top finale in a funhouse, it's certainly a case of too little, too late. The third film came out so quickly after the second film because the second film was a big hit, whereas the third film resulted in a 7-year gap between it and the next entry. And it kind of made it feel like we're probably only going to get a Child's Play trilogy instead of a whole series of films. A lot of people thought the slasher genre wouldn't live through the 90s, and Child's Play 3 did little to alleviate those concerns. Number 6 on my list, Cult of Chucky. Cult of Chucky is a bit of a mess. It's not altogether awful, but it's just a little bit scattered. There are a lot of moments in the film that feel a bit incoherent or muddled as far as characters' actions and the storytelling goes, and also a lot of wheel spinning, it feels like, to get to the end. And in general, it's a horror entry in the series, and it doesn't have a lot of scares, but it doesn't have any laughs either like the comedic entry, so it kind of fails in both accounts. The other point is that there's times where it tries to seem clever or psychological, and remember, if you try to be clever and you fail at it, it just makes you look dumb. Like its predecessor, Curse of Chucky, it primarily takes place in one location, and it feels a bit like a bottle episode as a result. It can feel a little bit confined, and at times even cheap. There are times where they use the mental institution setting to their advantage and we get some nice atmosphere, but there's a lot more times where it's just very dull and drab looking as a result, and it makes the whole thing feel a bit more boring. A movie with a murderous talking child's toy should never be boring. There are at least some entertaining kills that make the most of the asylum setting, and another redeeming aspect is that they embrace, tidy up and tie together all the different characters and loose ends from the series to make a more concise and focused narrative that isn't altogether necessary but does reward long-term fans. And I'll admit, I was a lot more critical of its dogmatic adherence to canon when I first saw this, but seeing as how it paid off with the TV series, I'm a little bit more forgiving now. It does also have a decent twist at the end of the film, and we also have Chucky being able to split his soul into multiple different beings, which is enjoyable, pretty fun as a concept, and at least it's something fresh, which can't be said for the rest of the film. Here's hoping that whenever they make the next Chucky film though, that it's a little bit more satisfying. Number 5 on my list, Seed of Chucky. If you don't like the comedic side of the Chucky franchise, then this is your personal hell. Personally, I don't mind when the series gets a little bit silly, and it certainly does in Seed of Chucky. Chucky tackling fatherhood is an interesting premise in its own right, but it doesn't feel like the movie always fully delves into that idea. Instead, it becomes something of a moral dilemma where the characters kind of hold them mirror to their own actions in deciding whether Glenn or Glenda follow them in their footsteps of becoming a killer, with Tiffany recognising that maybe she shouldn't be a killer, she should give it all up for this newfound family, while Chucky wants the child to follow in his footsteps of being a total psycho murderer.
Violence is bad, isn't it?
It's time we owned up to it. We have a problem with killing.
I don't have a problem with killing. I like a little killing now and then. What's wrong with that?
And it's really only half engaged with it. It's mostly something to keep the plot wheels moving, with eventually us reaching the conclusion that Chucky has a degree of self-acceptance or who he is and what he does, even if he is a murderous doll.
I'm one of the most notorious slashers in history, and I don't want to give that up. I am Chucky. the killer doll, and I dig it.
That's good, is it? This is also where the movies got even more meta, perhaps gratingly so, as Jennifer Tilly, who voices Tiffany Valentine, plays Jennifer Tilly, the actress, and that's pivotal to the plot. And there's also a lot of commentary on Hollywood and celebrity, but there's not a lot of depth to it or any real insight. It's mostly just fun window dressing to service the jokes. There are some good kills throughout, and this is also the film where they wholeheartedly embrace the LGBT themes of the series in a way that honestly feels quite ahead of its time when it comes to gender and sexual identity. The film forgets about horror and becomes a big meta camp comedy that serves to expand the series and its lore, probably by too much. But I think it's a generally quite fun film, and it's certainly one that's essential to understanding the ongoing Chucky universe. But it definitely felt like a film series that needed to be reeled in a bit, and it would be with the next entry. Number 4, Curse of Chucky. Curse of Chucky is something of a strange film. It serves as a bit of a soft reboot of the series with some new characters and taking the series back to its horror roots after those comedic entries, and it mostly works in that regard. However, it does take some time to get going. In fact, for most of the runtime it feels like Chucky doesn't have a lot to do and certainly doesn't have a lot to say, in a way that feels reminiscent of the original film. But it does give us time to get all the characters introduced into the film, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't really care for many or any of them, except for our female lead of Nika Pierce, played by Fiona Dorff, who is such a great addition to the franchise and gives an excellent performance that this film absolutely needed. The spooky old house aesthetic actually does lend itself to a good atmosphere, and there are some decent kills here, even if a few of them are a little bit CGI shonky. And Chucky himself is also looking pretty damn good. I actually think his movement is more fluid in these last two entries than any of the other films. There's also a massive revelation towards the end of the film that means that Chucky and Nika's lives have been intertwined since the very beginning, and I'm not always a fan of retroactive continuity, but I think it surprisingly works well here. Some minor elements that do frustrate me. It does feel a little bit confined to that one setting at times, much in the way Cult of Chucky did, but to a lesser degree. And budget-wise, it's a straight-to-DVD film, and there are times where it shows, but certainly they did the best with what they had. This is one of the films in the series that's actually grown on me over time. Certainly it was the right moment to bring the series back to its horror roots, and while not everything in the film does work, enough does work for it to be a good time. Speaking of growing on me. Number 3, Child's Play 2. Child's Play 2 managed to successfully follow up the original film, but also manages to explore other avenues. For example, the kills here are very creative, but also very much lean into the fact that this is a child's toy. They also give Andy a far more active role as a protagonist here, despite him just being a child, and we get the introduction of Kyle, who has a fun dynamic with Andy that is distinct and different from the original film. While we lose the murder mystery element that we had in the first film of who is doing the killings, it's instead replaced with characterization for Chucky himself. It feels like this is the movie where they took a big step towards giving us the charismatic, vulgar and humorous murder doll that we all know and love. And while it doesn't go full tilt comedy like later entries, it does give Chucky plenty of time to crack out a few one-liners and remind us what we love about him.
You goddamn women drivers!
They also deliver some bigger set pieces that make this feel like a bigger sequel, chief among them being the finale set in the Play Pals factory that is filled with creative uses of the machines, nice subversions, comedic violence, and plenty of moments where we think that we've seen the last of Chucky. Spoiler alert, you've never seen the last of Chucky. A great sequel that managed to one-up the original in some ways and evolve the series as a whole for the better too. Not many slasher series can say they've got a good first sequel, but Chucky can. Number 2, Child's Play. Watching the original film and knowing what Chucky would become later is kind of interesting, because now he's this semi-adorable mascot for horror fans that has a healthy dose of campiness and cheese. However, the original film is a surprisingly earnest slasher film, despite what could be a goofy premise. And while later entries in the series would have Chucky as a protagonist or anti-hero, in the original movie, he's a straight up antagonist. What makes this film great is that it's essentially a film of two halves, with the first half essentially teasing us about whether or not Chucky is alive and responsible, or if Andy is lying. And obviously the audience is ahead of the characters in that regard, and obviously we all know now that Chucky is alive and murderous, but we still get that effective hook, and we get the enjoyment of seeing the characters learn and find it out themselves. Most notably when Chucky kind of comes to life and shows his true colours for the first time, as Andy's mother, Karen, realises that he's been functioning this whole time without batteries. And we see Chucky come alive in all his violent and vulgar glory.
I said talk to me, damn it, or else I'm gonna throw you in the fire!
You stupid you filthy Did you with me?
The second half of the film then becomes about trying to survive and kill Chucky before he kills them. And this film succeeds where many other slashers fail, in that it gives us characters that are actually active in their fate and that we can root for, namely Karen, who wants to clear Andy's name but also kill Chucky before he does any more damage, and it makes for a very effective horror thriller. That's to say nothing about the great kills, cool effects, or awesome vocal performance from Brad Dourif. This could so easily have been a very goofy and disposable film, but instead we get a slasher that takes its threat seriously but also has fun with its premise. If that's not enough to get you to give this series a go, then nothing ever will be. And my number one film, Bride of Chucky. People have different tastes when it comes to Chucky. Some prefer the serious slasher vibes, some prefer the self-aware comedic entries, and I'm somewhere in the middle. And that sweet spot is exactly where Bride of Chucky lands.
Stabbings went out with Bundy and Dahmer. You look like Martha Stewart with that thing.
Who the is Martha Stewart?
Bride of Chucky steers comedic but isn't indulgently meta like some of the lesser entries in the series, and best of all, they still give Chucky some characterization, backstory, and play to the strengths he has over other slashers, namely that he is so charismatic. In fact, I would say this is the film where, without a doubt, Chucky became the top star.
You weren't gonna ask me to marry you?
What are you nuts?
You can't talk about the film, of course, without talking about the bride herself, Tiffany Valentine, who is such an amazing addition to this franchise and really breathes new life into the Chucky character, as we now get to see him as a romantic partner and a partner in crime. And it's a great dynamic, and I assume they just figured that Chucky works well when he's got someone to play off, and I don't think he's ever found anyone better to play off than Tiffany.
Barbie, eat your heart out.
Jennifer Tilly as Tiffany is having an absolute ball. Talk about someone who just understood the assignment to a T. She is one of the best things to have happened to this franchise. Speaking of Chucky, on the other hand, that stitched together design is my favourite Chucky look, and Brad Dourif always does a great job doing the voice work, but here he gets to have a bit more range and he absolutely nails it. The road trip aspect of the film gives lots of freedom for new locations and creative kills, and we also have director Ronnie Yu giving the film a lot of visual flourishes, meaning you're never bored watching this film. But if you're not watching it and you're just listening to it for some reason, the soundtrack is incredibly late 90s. I kind of enjoy it in a guilty pleasure way though. While others might feel differently, I think this totally plays into the series' strengths and offers what not many other horror slasher series could do, which is a bit of versatility and provides comedy without undercutting the threat entirely. And for that reason, Bride of Chucky is my number one.
A true classic. Never goes out of style.
I want more! And that is my ranking of the Chucky films. Let me know in the comments below how you would rank these films or what you think of my list. That's totally fine too. If you enjoyed this video, there's plenty more Chucky content, more horror content, and lots more videos on film and TV on the channel. So be sure to like and subscribe. I promise if you do, I'll be your friend to the end. Heidi ho!